What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the latest episode, the Week 14 edition of The Game Plan. I am your host, the authentic one, your boy, Mr. Matty Kiwoom, joined, of course, by the stats wizard over at Player Profile himself, Mr. Evan Ringler. Evan, what's going on, brother?
What's up, Maddie? Happy to be back. Happy to be 1 week away from the fantasy playoffs. Ready to win some money this year.
We're gonna, today, obviously, we got a pretty playoff heavy episode, right? I mean, it's time to get ready for the playoffs, or it's time to get your team into the playoffs. So we're not just talking about the people that can sit back and relax this weekend and gear up for the playoffs. No, we're also helping all of the fantasy managers that need to win this week to get in. So we got some do or die players, and we got some early streamers, guys that put on the back end of your bench that you're definitely going to want to use in the first week of the fantasy playoffs, which is just 1 week away. So without further ado, get out your pens, get out your pads, get out your notebooks, everybody, because we need to start game planning for the final week of the fantasy regular season. And then, of course, as always, guys, thank you for tuning in, tapping in. Make sure you like, subscribe, all that good stuff. But if you want to leave your lineup question in the chat, go ahead. We will definitely do it. We'll make sure to answer all the questions. And if you want to skip the line, leave a super chat. We'll get to it right away. We won't wait till the end of the show, which we do have one in the chat. So shout out to Evan. But please talk me out of sitting Egbuka and or Jefferson for A.D. Mitchell and or Jay Higg. Then we have a defensive question and a quarterback question. But let's start here. Jefferson, Egbuka, Mitchell, Higgins, which two are you starting?
I'm starting the studs. I know they haven't been studs recently, but I'm going to keep starting them. And this actually leads me into my first player, which is going to be Justin Jefferson, as a must start this week. I don't think you can afford to leave him on your bench this week. Egbuka, I would understand it a little bit more, but I'm still going to trust it because he's getting so much volume. It just hasn't been converted on recently versus guys like Jaden Higgins or Adonai Mitchell who are in worse situations with worse quarterbacks. I would just prefer to lean with the guys that I think are good.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the two studs here. I'm not opposed to sitting Egbuka or Jefferson in Week 14. I've sat Egbuka last week in the league, and I'm going to sit him again this week. But I have options. Like I'm not worried picking between A.D. Mitchell and Jay Higgins. I have other high quality. Marvin Harrison Jr., Rome Odunze. These are the type of guys I can get in when he's not on bye. So I'm with you there. I think Egbuka and Jefferson are the right plays. Now let's talk about the defense. Rams or Texans this week?
I like the Rams. I just prefer that matchup versus the Cardinals as opposed to the Texans who have to play the Chiefs. They are pretty similar in my projections, but I prefer the Rams.
Yeah, they're pretty. The Texans have just been so battle tested that I feel like they can kill anybody. If this was in Houston,
For sure.
I would go with Houston, but I'm not. I am going to go with the Rams because the Rams have been good. And Brissett throws it so many times that he could throw 3 picks and still throw full 4 touchdowns. Like the shootout can happen, the defense can get involved. There's a lot that can happen with that Rams D. So I will go with the Rams defense over the Texans. But I'll say this, Evan, if you can roster both of these guys this week, because I want to keep that Texans defense, because next week the Cardinals go into Houston to play the Texans, and that could be a lot of good opportunities for fantasy points. So I'm going to try to keep the Texans deep, but if it's just this week, I'm going to go with Rams.
Yeah, then week 16, the Texans get the Raiders. So definitely try to hold on to them.
I mean, we talked about buys for the playoffs a few episodes ago, so check that out. But I had to sneak in the Houston defense for that reason. So if you love the defense talk, go tune back a couple episodes ago. And then last part of this question, TeSlaa or Jaden Daniels if he plays?
I prefer Trevor Lawrence against the Colts instead of Jaden Daniels versus Minnesota. It's really just comes down to the matchup for me. I trust the Jaguars offense versus the Colts defense more than I trust uh, the Washington offense versus the Vikings defense. Um, Pretty simple.
Yeah, and I don't love the idea of having to play Jaden Daniels coming off such a bad injury. I know he's ahead of schedule. He's a freak. I get all that stuff, all these good things. Like I understand all that, but it was a horrible injury. And Minnesota's defense has been pretty ferocious this year. Brian Flores has the boys playing pretty good. So I too will reluctantly play Trevor Lawrence. I do notice at playerprofile.com your weekly rankings, Evan. You got Trevor Lawrence as QB9 this week.
Yes,
Ooh,
sir. Yes, sir. I
chihuahua.
like the matchup for him. Of course, it can always bite you with Trevor Lawrence. Can't be shocked if he goes out there and has 4 turnovers. But I also wouldn't be shocked if the Commanders put up like 200 total yards. It's
Yeah.
just a really tough matchup versus a great Minnesota defense, especially when Washington doesn't really have a running game and they don't really have an offensive line. It's just really tough.
And I don't know what this says about, what's coming out of Vegas, the bookmakers. But the implied total right now for the Commanders is 20.5. So that tells us either Vegas does not believe Jaden plays, or if he does, this is going to be a tough scene because that offense with Jaden Daniels only projected to score 20.5 points.
Yeah, and
Something's a bit fishy.
a piece of that is that the quarterback on the other side is JJ McCarthy. So they're not going to have. It's not going to be a high scoring game environment in general,
Yeah,
versus Jags Colts, which could theoretically be a shootout, even if I'm a little low on the Colts offense at the moment.
I agree. All right, let's get into the do or die week 14 players. You mentioned Justin Jefferson made the list, so talk about him.
Yes, sir. That's my number one player. I know that a lot of Jay Jetta managers have been incredibly frustrated with him recently.
It's been
Over the
tough.
last 4 games, he's averaging under 8 fantasy points per game and under 40 receiving yards per game. It's been really brutal for those managers out there, but I'm telling you, he is still a must start this week because number one, the matchup could not be better. Washington is by far the worst pass defense in the league by EPA per dropback, and it's not close at all. They also allow the fifth most fantasy points per game to wide receivers and the fourth most receiving yards to wide receivers. Jefferson, he has guaranteed volume. Hardly any receivers have guaranteed volume. Jefferson ranks top 7 in both total targets and air yards, as well as target share and air yard share. Top 7 in all of those. He also ranks as the wide receiver 12 in expected points per game, and that only counts catchable targets. So it doesn't. The JJ McCarthy struggling factor doesn't really affect that. It's actually Jefferson that needs to catch the ball and just get a little lucky with touchdowns.
Someone in the chat saying they lost sound. I can hear you, Evan. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right. So if leave in the chat, let us know if we lost sound. And if you're listening via podcast, you're not going to because we will cut this out. Our guy John Adams is top notch. But Jetta, talking about Jetta, the only question I have to ask, because you bring up a lot of good points. Despite how good Jefferson has been, can fantasy managers trust McCarthy? Not just this week,
Yeah.
but for the rest of the season. Because if he's our do or die guy, he's going to get us in the playoffs. Can we trust McCarthy to not only just attack a bad defense, but maintain some sort of, consistency that gets Jetta going in the playoffs?
Not really. I mean, nothing we've seen would tell us that you can, but based on the schedule, it is very favorable, like super favorable. He's got the Commanders this week. Like I said, the worst pass defense in the league. Then he goes to Dallas, which is one of the worst pass defenses in the league, and then to the Giants, which is just one of the worst defenses in the league. So we shouldn't be surprised at all if over those 3 games, Jefferson is still averaging 12 to 15 fantasy points. Not asking for the world, but he's going to get the volume, just has to not drop the passes. And, McCarthy has to just be a little bit more accurate. He has the defenses he struggled against have been much better than the defenses he's about to face. That's how I would tee it up.
My first do or die player, RJ Harvey. Start RJ Harvey. I just needed to bring him up because I think just based on where he was going, how easy he was to acquire at different points of the year, that you might have a roster that has Harvey, but you might have not have really had much pressure to play him every week. You could have enough running backs and enough flex plays that Harvey wasn't in the forefront of your minds, but I'm saying to get him there. And I do want to give you a quick shout out, Evan, because you said earlier in the year, one of your bold predictions was that RJ Harvey would be a top 12 running back at the second half of the season. Your bold take was that J.K. Dobbins would start hot, and Harvey would finish strong. And it's looking pretty good because Harvey looked good last week, scoring 2 touchdowns, absolutely tearing up the Commanders. But this week, another soft matchup. Got the Raiders, which is they give about 1.5 more than average to running backs, which is 10th in the metric. So it's a matchup we are looking to attack. And the thing I like about Harvey is not only is he starting to get a little bit more touches, but on a per-touch basis, he's been great with touches. So we like that he's getting the rushes, but he's also getting some targets. Since week 9, 5 targets, 3 targets, 3 targets, 4 targets. It's not the most. It's not Christian McCaffrey, but if he is as efficient with these catches as he has been, 5 of 5, 2 of 3, 3 of 3, 3 of 4, we'll take those extra 2 to 5 fantasy points on top of the touchdown upside, the breakaway upside. And he's definitely had down weeks over this last month, but he also has had a top 10 running back weekly finish, 3 of the last 5. So the upside's there. The per touch efficiency is there. And the touches themselves go up. 13 last week, 5 in the red zone. RJ Harvey to me is a guy you just got to get in your lineup because we like the matchup and we love the player this week.
Yeah, I totally agree. Without J.K. Dobbins, we would hope in an ideal world that RJ Harvey just got like an 80% workload. Unfortunately, it is Sean Payton, so you're not going to get quite that. You're going to get 50, 60%. But that's still good enough to be a solid running back 2 or even better, just because this offense is so good for running backs. It is arguably the best offensive line in the league. It's at least top 3, especially the run blocking is awesome. And you also have a Sean Payton and Bo Nix offense. They like to throw the running back traditionally. Not as much this year, but still a lot of running back targets. It's just a really good situation. And obviously RJ Harvey is a very explosive player, which is why he scored so many touchdowns this year on few touches relatively.
Yeah, and RJ Harvey, get him in your lineup week 14. Do or die players. Guys, you must play this week to get your team into the fantasy playoffs. Much more right after this.
Let me ask you a question. If you had one player to pick, one player that's going to go off, go nuclear this week, who would it be? And on Better Picks, that's all you need to do. They have a free player waiting for you in the app. You just log in and you see, okay, who is the free mystery box player that I get to ride this week? So download the Better app. Use promo code PlayerProfiler and watch your lineups cash. Maybe. Anyway, it's easy. It's free. And speaking of free, Better also gives you $10 of promotional funds, no deposits required, and Better has the highest multipliers in the game, 10,000x. It's crazy to even say it. It's wild. They let you win up to 1,000x on any 2 picks with their mystery multiplier. This big bang for your buck. It's simple. It's easy for beginners. So click the link in the description of this show. Better Picks. Sports just got better with code PlayerProfiler.
Do or die players. This is the game played. Matty Hume, Evan Ringo. Evan, who is the next do or die player?
I'm going with Kenneth Walker. It's been overall a fairly disappointing season for Walker. We were hoping to see a little bit more ceiling, but I believe that is turning around. Over the last 3 weeks, the usage has shifted significantly towards K9. Over the last 3 weeks, 40 carries to 30 for Charbonnet, 46 routes to 27 for Charbonnet, 10 targets to Charbonnet's 2. So the usage is definitely trending towards K9. He's also gone over 100 yards in 2 of those 3 games, one of which against the Rams defense. That was a really impressive one. The Seahawks are also now splitting the goal line carries, which gives Walker a better chance at getting in the end zone. And then this week, Kenneth gets the Falcons defense, who ranked 25th in EPA per rush over the last 2 months and are an above average fantasy matchup for running backs.
Last week, Charbonnet outscored Walker, but he got the goal line touchdown. I think it's encouraging to see Walker still score double-digit fantasy points with no touchdown.
Definitely.
Because the touchdown upside's there. But I have to ask, in your intelligent brain, have you been able to find any type of indication, any type of sign that can let us fantasy managers know Charbonnet or Walker? Because I look at the schedule, and it feels like you can't pick who's going to emerge on top any given week. Have you found anything that our fantasy listeners can maybe use for these last few weeks of the season?
Well, if the usage over the last 3 weeks, if that continues, which I expect it to based on all of the coach speak that I've heard, we should expect Walker to outscore Charbonnet 70% of the time. And that is reflected in their points per game and expected points per game, where Walker is actually like 2 or 3 points ahead of Charbonnet over the course of the whole season. He's also the much more explosive player, which means he has a lower floor but a higher ceiling, I would say. He's one of these guys that every run kind of goes for 15 yards or it goes for -5, while Charbonnet, he just gets you 3 yards no matter what. We should prefer Walker no matter what in all formats because he is now the receiving back, the preferred receiving back at least. It's like a 70-30 split in that area going forward.
Kenneth Walker emerging when we needed him most. Evans do or die, willing to put the season on the line with Kenneth Walker, KW3. I love to see it. Love it. My next do or die player I'm going to go to battle with this week and make sure I start him everywhere is Zay Flowers. Don't be scared, people. Don't be scared. I know last week it was brutal. Not even a single fantasy point. And this, well, I guess if you count decimals, it was 0.6. But if you don't have decimals, it was a 0. Wide receiver, 105. All right. But last week's in the past. Prior to that, all the numbers really do check out for Zay Flowers. He had 5 weeks in a row of double-digit fantasy points. He's on a 5 or more target streak dating all the way back to week 6. He's getting red zone targets every single week pretty much. And even last week, how bad it was. He ran 35 routes and had 7 targets. It was just a monumentally bad day for this offense last week, Thursday night, Thanksgiving night. But everything points to a bounce-back game for Zay Flowers this week. All the metrics, all the indicators of a reliable fantasy receiver are clear and apparent. Flowers is 13th in target share, so he's getting the ball thrown his way a ton. He's getting a lot of catchable targets, so he's able to convert. He's been awesome with the ball in his hands. 9th in yak so far this year. He's been able to juke rate, explosive rate. All these numbers pop. Separation numbers. All of these metrics, highlight a consistent receiver that should smash. But this week, he's got Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is the second most advantageous matchup to wide receivers. They give up over 6 points more than league average. And Zay, not just Zay, but the Ravens, Zay and his boys, everybody in Baltimore want to win. They got to come out against their competition for the AFC North, the Steelers. This is the week where Lamar gets right. And by the transitive property of fantasy football, so does Zay Flowers. Here's some of the guys I'm starting him over. I'm starting him over Lad McConkey, Rome Odunze. I'm starting over both guys in Washington. I'm starting him over Marv. There's a lot of guys that usually find starting lineups, and I am making sure that Zay Flowers is one of them because Zay Flowers is going to have a big, big, big week 14.
I agree. overall. I definitely want to have Zay Flowers in my lineup this week because, for the most part, he has had an incredible floor this season. Actually, it's kind of a really weird stat, but in 8 of his 12 games this season, he's been between 11 and 15 fantasy points, right in that range. He also had the one blow up game in week 1 and a couple bust weeks. But besides that, he has been super consistent. He's 5 targets every single week, basically. Um, and the Ravens really need to play well this week against the Steelers. They'll be super motivated. I don't know. This Ravens offense has been so weird to figure out all season. Ever since Lamar came back from the injury, he's looked not good. So I'm not exactly sure what to do with that. But what we do know is that it's a great matchup for Flowers, and he's going to get the volume. And those are the two things that, those are the easiest to predict. Everything else, it's a little random. But those two things really, really work in his favor.
Evan, do you have any more do or die week 14 starts?
This one is a little deeper. You're not going to have to play this guy in all your leagues. But I just really wanted to bring him up because I think that Isaac TeSlaa is a fantastic streamer this week, regardless of Amon-Ra's, outlook, if he's going to play or not. If Amon-Ra is out, obviously he's like a wide receiver 2. This is a great matchup versus the Cowboys passing defense. It's the best matchup for fantasy wide receivers by a very wide margin. The Lions are likely to score a ton of points, and TeSlaa will be a full-time player if Amon-Ra is on the field. We've seen him make several incredible plays this year. Elite athleticism, like 99th percentile athleticism, and a giant catch radius. And I'd also argue that even if Amon-Ra does play, TeSlaa is still a very good streamer that you can throw in as like a wide receiver 3 or a flex. We should also note that Khalif Raymond is out this week, and the Lions are missing all 3 of their top tight ends. Their 3 top tight ends coming into the year are all out for this game. Because of this, it was the same way last week, and Detroit played much more 11 personnel, meaning that TeSlaa is going to be on the field regardless of Amon-Ra's status. And the matchup is so juicy that I just want that wide receiver 3 that's going to be on the field probably 90% of the snaps against Dallas. It's just beautiful.
Is TeSlaa going to run routes like Pearsall and never actually do anything? I'm debating to start him or Luther Burden half-point PPR. You made the case to do or die with Isaac TeSlaa.
Absolutely.
So are you starting him over Burden?
Yep, not even a question, even if Amon-Ra plays.
Boom, there you have it. My last do or die player, Brenton Strange. So if you haven't, if you do not have a tight end, one of the top tier tight ends, you've been playing the streaming game, stream Brenton Strange this week. In one of my leagues, I've been bouncing between Harold Fannin, Dalton Kincaid when he's healthy. I'm dropping Fannin. This is a redraft league. I am dropping Fannin to pick up Strange. I get Strange this week as my tight end 5. I'm looking over at playerprofiler.com. I see my man Evan as tight end 7. So we are lockstep. And it starts obviously with the matchup. The matchup is unbelievable. Indianapolis against tight ends is the 3rd most advantageous matchup. They've given up the 2nd most receiving yards to a tight end, and they've given up the 4th most catches to tight ends. So they are just a defensive unit that cannot stop opposing tight ends. And Brenton Strange has been really good since coming back from injury. 2 weeks, tight end 4, tight end 7. And he's done it in 2 different ways, which I do like to see from a player that isn't the dominant force of a Trey McBride, Brock Bowers. But in his first week back, week 12, 5 targets, caught all 5 for 93 yards. That's 14 points. Yes, love that. Last week, targets only 4, caught 3, 45 yards, still scored a tutty, 13.5 fantasy points. So he's doing it either with touchdowns or he's doing it on volume. And when you just look kind of over the course of the season, The stats are good, not great, and I think that the counting stats, particularly like the targets and stuff, are not great because of the injury, of course. But one thing that does stick out, my friend, Brenton Strange, the third highest yards per route run amongst qualified tight ends, fourth yards per target. So he's getting the ball downfield. He's able to execute downfield. He's able to be pretty dynamic as a pass catcher. And Brenton Strange, for me, this week with the matchup against the Colts, I'm firing up Brenton Strange anywhere. I'm going to pick him up. I'm going to start him. I'm going to get him in. There's only like a handful of players that I'm going over. If your name isn't Trey McBride, Tyler Warren, Brock Bowers, or Travis Kelce, I'm playing Brenton Strange over you.
I love it. I was thinking about bringing in Strange as well. I would add one more name to that list. I would start, if he plays, Dalton Kincaid has an even juicier matchup. So I would start him over Strange. But besides that, I'm right there with you. I think it's a great matchup for Strange. And I'll throw up a couple more stats at you. Fourth and first downs per route run. So these most predictive stats that we have, he looks great in them. He's also second in deep target share and ninth in ADOT among tight ends. So he's an explosive play waiting to happen because he's getting targeted downfield. And Lawrence has been very accurate throwing to him as well this year. Fourth in catchable target rate. Love the call from you.
You did make my night a little bit more difficult, though, Evan, because the decision I'm going to have to make in this league that I'm picking up Brenton Strange is Kincaid or Strange. But I'm going to do it anyway. I'm still going to make the pickup because I want both. I want the options. And it seems as if to start the week, Kincaid's only going to practice on a limited basis, so it is going to be a pay attention situation. Check Twitter every single friggin' day to make sure he practices and stuff. So it's not a lock. So I do want to have them both. And then I can make my ultimate decision. So some do or die players for week 14. Brenton Strange, Zay Flowers, RJ Harvey, Kenneth Walker, Isaac TeSlaa, right? How do you say it? Isaac TeSlaa. And the Jetta, Justin Jefferson. Make sure these 6 players are in your lineups. Now let's keep it on to segment number 2. Some playoff stashes. So these are for all of my fantasy managers that get to kick their feet up this week and just compete for the total fantasy points because you're in the playoffs, you're in the offs, you are ready to challenge for a championship. And I just spit all over my mic. Good thing I have a protector on it. But these are the guys that get ahead of your league mates. These guys are rostered in less than 50% of leagues. These are the guys that if you got some spots on your bench, pick them up. Put them on there and let the fantasy playoffs come to you. So, Evan, what is your first playoff streamer?
Yeah, this can be kind of a tough exercise this time of year just because if you're in the playoffs, then your team is pretty good and you hopefully don't have to start guys off the waiver wire. But there are a few exceptions and we want to swing for upside with these, right? So my first one is the Bucs defense. In their playoff schedule is very nice. They face Kirk Cousins, Bryce Young, and Tua Tagovailoa. 3 juicy matchups. I wouldn't be surprised if in any of those games they put up 20 or even 30 fantasy points. They're an above average defense by most metrics. They thrive on chaos, blitz at a very high rate, which forces a lot of turnovers. And it leads to a kind of a boom bust play style. But against these quarterbacks, again, Cousins, Young, Tagovailoa, there's huge upside for them if you don't have a locked-in, set-it-and-forget-it defense every week. They are also available in over 60% of ESPN leagues.
I love where your head is at, and we didn't talk about the segment before the show, but we both are in the same headspace because you mentioned how hard it is to talk about streaming option stashes for the playoffs because your teams are good.
Right.
So you went defense. Well, my first stream stash is a quarterback. The second is a tight end for the same reason, because odds are you don't need these type of difference makers. You're looking to win on the edges. So for anyone that's streaming a quarterback or maybe dealing with some injuries, what have you, that's where I'm going to start. So I'm going to start with quarterback. And the first playoff stash, the guy that I'm okay streaming or playing in the playoffs, is Tyrod Taylor. In the first week of the fantasy playoffs, he is at Jacksonville, which is the 10th most advantageous matchup for quarterbacks. And because their run defense is so good, the Jacksonville Jaguars have a very clear pass funnel the Jacksonville defense creates a pass funnel offense. And they actually have the highest opponent passing percentage in the NFL because of it. They give up 230 passing yards a game, which is the 10th most. And despite having a really, Josh Hines Allen's having a great year, but they still only have a 4.8% sack rate, which is the 5th worst. So Tyrod's going to have some time. Tyrod's going to be able to probably get off some volume. And Tyrod's been surprisingly decent this season. 4 games, I would say, true starts, right? Of the 4 of his true starts, he's been QB9, QB17, and QB7 last week. These are numbers you can play in one QB, people. If you are frustrated with your quarterback situation, if you're nervous about the Baker Mayfields, if you don't know what to do with Trevor Lawrence in the playoffs, Ty God's out there. So he's rostered about 10% of leagues or something. You're going to be able to pick him up. It's going to be ballsy. It's going to feel gross. But you could play him in week 14 or week 15, first week of the fantasy playoffs. So if you're looking to patchwork the quarterback position, start with Ty God in the first week of the fantasy playoffs. Makes me sick to say, but here we are, Evan.
I like it. You get a little rushing upside. And yes, it definitely feels gross, but it is not nearly as gross as the passing offense with Justin Fields. It is actually somewhat competent. He's been around average in terms of like completion percentage over expected, EPA per dropback. They've been solid versus Justin Fields, which is absolutely horrific. Also gives a little bit of a boost to guys like A.D. Mitchell or Mason Taylor, who become somewhat startable depending on the league. Yeah,
as our guy Andrew here says, he has been surprisingly solid in fantasy for us. And in the year of our Lord 2025, I can't believe I'm saying that, but we've said that many, many times this year. It's been a pretty wacky season. Let's hear your next playoff stash.
Yeah, this is a guy, I don't know if he's available in your league, but he is available in over 65% of ESPN leagues, and that is Devin Neal. I know a lot of people dropped him this week because he was somewhat disappointing with Kamara out, but the Saints rank 2nd in running back strength of schedule remaining. In the playoffs, they get to face the Panthers, Jets, and Titans, which are all great matchups for running backs. He's also gone over 11 expected fantasy points in the last 2 games. As long as Alvin Kamara is out of the lineup, Neal is a quality starter in fantasy. This is especially if you have an injury at the position. This is a great guy that can just fill in if you need to and get you to the next week.
Devin Neal, yeah. Devin Neal's he's on many of my teams that aren't in the playoffs. But it's okay because it's Dynasty League. So we like what we've seen out of Devin Neal, and it seems as if we've only just started to scratch the surface on what he can be. So I like the call. One of these guys that I think in most leagues, like our office leagues, family leagues, casual leagues, he's going to be available. So that's definitely a good pickup to make now, especially because of the fact that if he goes off this week,
yeah, he's not
it's going to be tough to get him. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So get him now. Do it right the second.
He's not like the highest upside guy or anything. We're going to talk about higher upside guys coming up, but he's just a guy that can get you to the next week, which sometimes that's what you need, even in the playoffs.
That's what you need. And the next guy that I'm going to talk about is the epitome of what you just mentioned, the guy that's going to get you past week 15, A.J. Barner. A.J. Barner, this year's been a surprising – the lows have been low, but the highs have been high. We a tight end 4 week has happened. A tight end 1 week has happened for
Yes,
A.J. Barner, but they're sprinkled in some tight end 40 weeks. It could get pretty bad. But in week 15 specifically, he goes against those Indianapolis Colts. And I talked about why we love Brenton Strange this week. It's that Colts matchup. Next week, It's A.J. Barner's matchup to have at home against Indy. Only rostered about 15% of ESPN leagues, so he's widely available, even in our sharper leagues. And on top of the matchup for the Colts just being so awesome, third most advantageous because they give up a ton of receiving yards and a ton of catches. So in our tight end premium leagues also, this might be a week where A.J. Barner can, maybe get 5-6 catches in this offense. And right now, looking at the over-under projection, 46.5, one of the highest on the slates. So we're expecting fantasy points to be scored, which means fantasy points can occur. So A.J. Barner, for me, someone that if you're not in love with your tight end for their Week 15, you're heading to the playoffs, maybe you don't drop that tight end, but if you got a spot, just put A.J. Barner on the back end of the bench and play a little streaming game to finish off season. And A.J. Barner in that first week of the playoffs has maybe the best matchup for tight ends.
Yeah, I like it. And then in week 16, he gets the LA Rams. And last time he played the Rams, he had 10 catches. So it's a good week 15, 16 combo for Barner potentially.
Ooh, the guy that catches A.J. Barner.
Yeah, and I think he is a really interesting player. One of my guys, all the way, dating back to last year when he was a rookie, he has come along much faster than I expected. Early this year, it looked like he was just going to be this red zone, go up and get it kind of guy, just kind of touchdown or bust. But then he's had a couple of games this year where he's just been peppered with these low A-dot throws, kind of Kelsey-ish, where he just runs 5 yards and turns around and finds the soft spot in the zone. If he can keep doing that, it really unlocks his ceiling. And then I'll also throw in there the Seahawks have their quote-unquote barnyard play where they bring Barner in and do the tush push. Yeah. So that can give you a couple touchdowns a year, maybe a touchdown a month or something like that from the rushing.
For Barner, too, the last 3 weeks, 2 of which haven't really been all that good. Even in the games that didn't pan out, he's gotten 11 targets, 4 targets, 5 targets. The targets have been pretty decent. So A.J. Barner, everybody. Tyrod Taylor, A.J. Barner, Devin Neal. These are the names you got to get on your team for the playoffs. Give us another stash, Evan.
I wasn't sure where to go with this last one. I wanted to do some high upside handcuffs, so I'm just going to list them off. All of these guys are available in over 65% of ESPN leagues. If you got an open roster spot, you should probably pick up one of these guys, unless you need a quarterback, tight end, or defense, like we mentioned earlier. But I'm going to go in order of what order I would pick these guys up in. So Blake Corum, Tyler Algier, Brian Robinson, Bashal Tutin, Ray Davis, Samaje Perine, Keaton Mitchell, Tank Bigsby, Caleb Johnson. So even some really deep sleepers for you guys in deeper leagues.
We talked about this a few weeks ago that, the importance of having these potential, lottery tickets, because right now, if you were early on Blake Corum, you might be holding on to a weekly top 15 performer at the position.
And he's still only at like 35% rostered. So
right, yeah, exactly. So as we get deep in the year, how it gets, especially in our redraft formats, the teams that fall off, those numbers kind of don't grow like they should, like they would if this was happening in week 2 or 3.
Right.
But I agree. Get these handcuffs, whichever ones are available. You kind of list them off with how you prioritize them. So get out there, people. Get these guys, because you don't know, one injury can happen to the starter on those rosters, and all of a sudden now, not only do you have a starter, a potential week winner, but your opponents can't pick them up. Your opponents can't use the rest of their fab. They can't use the number 1 waiver claim that they have to pick up the guy. So get them on your back end, your bench, and at the very least, play defense, because these can win leagues. These are the players that absolutely win leagues. The last guy that I want to get on my roster, stash, and potentially stream, Darius Slayton for the Giants. He's rostered in less than 25% of leagues. In Week 15, Slayton has the Washington Commanders on the schedule. Commanders are the 5th most advantageous matchup for receivers. They've given up the 5th most receiving yards, 2 wide receivers, and they're actually a bottom 6 defense in average target separation. And why that is important is because Darius Slayton is fast. He's not known to be a separator because he's not the best route runner and he's not a dominant force. But he's been really good for us fantasy managers lately, all under the radar. And if he can separate downfield using that speed against the Commanders, he can have not only like a keep you afloat week, but a win you a week. Over these past 4 games, Slayton is average. He has 11.2 fantasy points, 12.9, 3.3, and 14.1. 3 of the last 4 weeks, Evan, have been double digits, and if we're looking for a flex play, this is gold right here in the playoffs. You want to be able to bank on 12 and hope for 20. And Slayton is that type of guy. We saw the explosiveness on Monday Night Football last week against the Patriots. Took that quick slant. What was it, 40 yards to the house? Whatever it was. He only had 2 catches, still got 14 fantasy points. I want these high ups, guys that can just take it down, take the week down for you, even if he doesn't have 10 targets. Darius Slayton getting 7 targets against the Washington Commanders. Even if he only catches 4 of the balls, could be 100 yards and a tutty. He's got that type of breakaway speed even at his older age. He's 29 now pretty much. He's still got it, though. He's still quick. You still see it. And there's just not a ton of options for Jackson Dart in this offense. And going against Commanders, hopefully with Jaden Daniels back, we could see a big back-and-forth game in Week 15. So if you've kind of just been playing the hot hand in your flex and you're playoff bound, get Darius Slayton on the bench because he might be a real hot hand for you next week.
Yeah, and his Week 16, 17 matchups are pretty good as well. Minnesota and Vegas, neither one of those is particularly scary from a wide receiver standpoint, at least. And at the end of the day, I want pieces attached to Jackson Dart. And it looks like Slayton is probably their second best target at the moment. And yeah, he just needs one play to, bank on for your fantasy performance. He's also scored 11 and 12 points recently with no touchdowns. Mm-hmm. So that gives you a little bit of hope as well. He doesn't necessarily need the big play to get there.
Yeah, I don't know if he has a safe floor. I don't know if a guy whose career fantasy point average per game is about 6 is a floor. But over these past month, it does look like there's a decent floor. And, of course, the upside's there with the speed and the touchdown and the offense and the matchup. So, Darius Slayton, we have our playoff stashes. And that's it, folks. That's the rest of the formal show. So if you're listening via podcast, we bid you farewell. Make sure you rate, review, leave a comment, hit us up, do all that good stuff. But if you want to listen to the group chat answers, questions and answers, maybe it helps your team, go ahead, stick around, because that is what we are going to do next. And if you're watching live, of course, thank you so much for tapping in, hanging out with us on Wednesday night. Leave your question in the chat. We'll get to it. PPR, my friend. Courtland Sutton, Chris Olave, Christian Watson, or Terry Mack. Pick 2.
For me, of this group, Chris Olave is a must start. It's not particularly close with the other guys, just from a volume perspective. And then for the other 3, I prefer Watson. I couldn't live with myself putting any Broncos pass catcher in my lineup, honestly, in Week 14. So I'm avoiding Sutton. And then I don't know. I can't trust Terry McLaurin either. We haven't seen anything this year, really. I have high hopes. I love the guy, but give me Christian Watson, who's been on a hot streak. He's been getting a ton of volume, like a 30% target share over the last couple of weeks. And against the Bears, I think that could potentially be a shootout. We'll see how it goes, though.
Chris Olave, I don't think he's getting the love he deserves for us fantasy managers. This guy on a weekly basis is in an offense that has like an implied Vegas total of like 17 to 20. And yet he's still getting the volume, getting it done. So for me, Olave is a must play. I see here at playerprofiler.com. Again, go to playerprofiler.com, get the access to the rankings, become a member of the underworld and get access to all this stuff. Evan's rankings each and every week. If you go there, check it out. You'll see Olave top 13 play. I have him right behind you at wide receiver 15, so he's a lock for me. And then I'm also going to go with Christian Watson. Listen, people, do not get hung up on past performances, future projections. Take the information at hand for now and make the decisions. We're at the time of year where we can't think about the past, can't think about the future. We can only think about the present. And right now, Christian Watson, coming off a great Thanksgiving, has a top 10 matchup and an implied total of 25.5. Sutton, good matchup, decent implied total, but who the hell knows if he's going to get the ball. So I don't want to play him. And Terry Mack, I know he scored on Monday Night Football or Sunday Night Football, whatever it was, against the Broncos. Tough matchup, Minnesota. They give up more than 6 points, or they give up less. How would you say this, Evan? Minus 6.3. 6 fewer points to the league average at the position, 34st in the metric, and 20.5 fantasy implied total. Again, whether it's with Jaden or not, Vegas don't think they're going to score. I'm going to go with you, Olave and Watson.
Let's go.
Do you start Rome or Lad McConkey? McConkey's going to get Trey Lance throwing the ball this week.
Yeah, I think if Herbert starts, I would lean Lad. These two are very close for me, assuming that Herbert is healthy. These are very, very close. But if Trey Lance is playing, then you have to go Rome. There's just no way you can start Lad.
I agree. If it's Trey Lance, it's too much of an unknown to play Lad. If Herbert plays, I will play Lad because it's been brutal for Rome Odunze.
Yeah.
Going all the way back to week 9.
Mm-hmm.
1 week he's had double digits since week 9. 1. And these have been stinkers. Wide receiver 82, wide receiver 54. So I don't love this big country.
But man. If it's Trey Lance versus the Eagles, you can't start anybody. Not the running back, not the receivers, not the tight ends. Nobody. It's going to be ugly.
And we're hoping for nice weather and a shootout for the Packers and the Bears. Thoughts on this squad for the playoffs? This is a 12-man, 3 wide receiver, 2 running back, 1 flex. He's got Dak, JT, Jacobs, Kyron, JSN, Lamb, Sutton, Gadsden, Texans D, Myers. On the bench, he's got Godwin, Watson, you see it all here, Corum, Waller. What do you think? What should he do? Any advice for this guy?
Yeah, the one place my eyes went to was the tight end position, but I love having Waller on the bench. That's a great pickup. You can swap him and Gadsden as need be. Besides that, I don't know. The running backs are awesome. The receivers are awesome. I guess that third receiver spot is a little. I mean, you still got Sutton or Watson or Godwin. I love this.
Yeah,
I really don't have any feedback. I guess it's a little weird having both Watson and Jaden Reed, but I don't know. Who really cares? Wow, a lot of Packers on this team. Just noticing that. Jacobs, Watson, Reed, Wilson.
He's got his handcuffs ready to go, too.
Yeah, very true. I guess that's one interesting thing we could talk about is, would you prefer another backup over Emmanuel Wilson, or would you just want to hang on to him because he's your handcuff going into the playoffs? Gives you more of a safe floor.
I like this approach for the playoffs because then it's just
Me too.
a set it, like you just don't have to worry. Because if you win but Jacobs gets banged up, Wilson just goes in next week. We saw it already happen. And I think right now we're seeing the emergence of Corum. So if there were to be an absence from Kyron, the Corum plays fantastic. So I like having both of my handcuffs, especially with the quality of handcuffs. I think really kind of add to that. My thought here right away is, can you drop somebody to get Strange if he's available? Because I think Strange would be a nice backup.
Probably
here.
drop
I think
Waller to get him, but yeah.
No, I don't even know if you can. I think I might drop Gadsden. Gadsden's been very blah lately.
Yeah.
And if Trey Lance plays for 2 weeks, just 2 weeks, you might be sunk. You're cooked. So I think I'm okay dropping Gadsden if a Brenton Strange is out there. But I like having the handcuffs, and I think I'd put Watson on over Sutton. We just said that for another thing. So, we got a follow-up question with him too. Actually, would you drop Gadsden or Waller for Ertz? This is it. This is what I'm talking about because
Yeah.
Ertz has been coming on. Gadsden, I'm dropping Gadsden for Ertz right there. I'm making the move. If this
Man.
is Dynasty,
Man.
obviously we can't be talking like this, but I'm assuming not.
I would prefer Ertz over both of these. Oh man, it really pains me, but yeah, you can go ahead and drop Gadsden, I suppose. A little nugget for you to chew on. The Chargers offense has fallen from 9th to 28th in EPA per dropback since Joe Alt went out of the lineup. I think it's just kind of over for that offense, except for maybe Lad McConkey. I just don't think you can trust anybody else. Gadsden has been like he's seen his fantasy production cut by like 3 or 4 times since that Joe Alt injury. So that's just completely changed the trajectory of the season, unfortunately.
RJ Harvey, Brees Hall, or Ja Will. I'm assuming this is J-Mo, Jameson Williams. Love the content. Love you, man. Thank you for tuning in.
I'm assuming
Pick
Javonte,
2.
just because it's running backs. Man, this is really tough. What a great lineup to be able to choose between these 3 guys who are all in my top 16 running backs this week. I do have Brees Hall ranked the highest though. Against Miami, it's a pretty good matchup. He's actually been handling the entire workload over the past couple of weeks. There's been basically no Isaiah Davis involvement, so that's a huge boost to his fantasy value.
So which one are you benching?
Oh, we're benching one. Oh,
Yeah, you got to pick only 2 of them.
One. Okay.
No, you got to pick 2. So we're benching 1.
Okay. I am. This hurts because we just said in a do or die we have to start RJ Harvey, but I'm sitting RJ Harvey mostly just because he's with Sean Payton and I don't trust him. I also don't trust the offense, who last time they played the Raiders didn't go so well.
Yeah, I think I have to agree with you. Javonte, regardless of matchups, he's always good. This is a tough matchup. Lions are a tough matchup, but he's still handling the biz. He's still
you trust the offense
such a performer.
more.
And I don't. In any situation, Thursday night, Cowboys Lions. This feels like it could be a stinker, but it also could be like a 40 to 45 game. This could be a.
It should be a shootout. It really should be. It doesn't always work that way, but.
Fingers crossed, people. Fingers crossed. Patrick Mahomes or Jared Goff in that matchup that we were just kind of clamoring over.
I'm going with Jared Goff. Goff versus Dallas is a lot better than Mahomes versus Houston, in my opinion.
Godspeed, Alex, because if you do play Goff and he does have a stinker, seeing that in your lineup, knowing you have Mahomes, will hurt. But having said that, I am going to go with Goff. The matchup is too juicy. And Mahomes, it hasn't been the Chiefs' year. I could see the Texans just causing fits for Mahomes.
My take is that the Chiefs are going to run the table. They don't have a very hard schedule left, but I'm just not that interested in Mahomes rest of the season. I don't think they're going to be scoring a ton of points.
No,
and he's not running nearly as much.
So, which 3 wide receivers will we play this week? Pickens, Jameson Williams, McConkey, Waddle, Igbuka. Pick 3.
Pickens, auto start, top 5. J-Mo, auto start, even if Amon-Ra plays, I have him top 15 against Dallas. Just the dream matchup. As we've talked about, if Trey Lance is the quarterback for the Chargers, you cannot play Lad McConkey. I would just go with Waddle, even if Herbert does play. I like Waddle quite a bit above the other 2 guys, though. So give me Pickens, J-Mo, Waddle.
Me too. I'm going to go the same 3. And we were talking earlier in the show, like you can't start A.D. Mitchell over Justin Jefferson and Igbuka. But this is the situation where you can feel comfortable sitting in Igbuka because you have Pickens, you have J-Mo, and just have some beers tomorrow, Andrew. Enjoy the game, and then have Waddle go this weekend against the Jets. No Sauce Gardner, if you haven't heard. He also has a stream at tight end this week with Kittle on a bye. He grabbed Waller, Juwan Johnson, there's Parkinson. He's leaning Waller, but he might start Parkinson. Help him make the right decision.
No, don't start Parkinson. I know he's been good for fantasy recently, but it is not predictable. He's just kind of gotten lucky that the targets have gone to him instead of Davis Allen or Terrence Ferguson. Do not start him. Even if you look back on this and see, oh man, he scored another touchdown, it's not predictable. Stay away. He said Juwan or Waller, right?
Yeah.
I prefer Juwan. More consistent volume, in my opinion. He's basically the wide receiver too.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. All right, let's keep these questions rolling. This is always a great part of the show, getting to it. Defensive question. You know it's fantasy playoffs around the corner when people ask about defenses. Miami or Vikings?
I have Miami this week against the Jets instead of Minnesota versus Washington. I just, the Dolphins defense has actually been playing pretty well recently. The Dolphins as a whole
They have been playing
they've won
good,
like
really.
4 of their last 5, I think. Screwing one of my over bets, but what can you do? And they get the better matchup, clearly. The Vikings versus Jaden Daniels, it could go very well, it could go very poorly. Where, the Dolphins versus Tyrod Taylor, that's probably a better matchup.
Yeah, I think even a good Tyrod Taylor game doesn't mean a ton of points scored for the Jets. Right. And, even if Jaden Daniels doesn't play, we just saw Mariota put up 20. Put up 20 points against the Denver Broncos defense. I know they still had a good game, but I think if we're cutting hairs here, I would go with Miami slightly over Minnesota this week. Do we know if Mike Evans is playing this week?
He had a limited practice today. I would lean towards don't count on it. Just don't count on it at all. I would lean like 90% that he doesn't play, even if he does have a couple of full practices. It's usually not how it goes. Is immediately activated and then immediately plays.
Lamar or TeSlaa in a must-win spot. 6-point passing TD, half point per rush attempt. TeSlaa or Lamar with everything on the line.
Man, this is a tough one. This is a really tough one. If you get this wrong, it's really going to hurt because it's either you benched Lamar and he went off. Like, how could you do that? Or you started Lamar and he sucked for the 4th week in a row. How could you have done this? But I'm going with Lamar. I'm a start your studs guy. He's got a great matchup against Pittsburgh. It should work, but who knows, man? It's really hard to predict this stuff, but I like Lamar.
I'm with you too. You just can't stomach getting cute at this time of year. We love the matchup. I love Zay Flowers, as I mentioned earlier in the show. Give me Lamar. Adonai Mitchell or Isaac TeSlaa?
This depends for me on if Amon-Ra plays. If Amon-Ra plays, then I'm going Adonai Mitchell. If he does not play, then I'm going Isaac TeSlaa.
If he doesn't play, Amon-Ra that is, where will TeSlaa slide up in the rankings? Because you have Amon-Ra ranked right now at wide receiver 7. So if you remove him, how high does TeSlaa soar?
Yeah, so currently I have Amon-Ra at 7, J-Mo at 15, TeSlaa at 38. If Amon-Ra is out, J-Mo probably goes up to like 6, and TeSlaa goes up into probably the mid-20s, around like Odunze, Sutton, and the Commanders receivers, somewhere around there.
And for reference, too, you have Adonai Mitchell ranked as wide receiver 31, so you do believe in A.D. Mitchell, but that matchup without Amon-Ra St. Brown on the board, especially with the skill set that TeSlaa has. Obviously, he's not as good as Amon-Ra. There's very few receivers that are anywhere near that talent level, but he's smooth. He can play slot. He's big enough frame. I think he can handle a nice target share if Amon-Ra is on the shelf. Pitts, Strange, or Juwan this week in PPR?
This one is our boy Brenton Strange, baby. We gave the case earlier in the show.
Brenton friggin' Strange all day, every day. I appreciate it, fellas. No, we appreciate you for tuning in. Lost the last 4 weeks in a row and playing scared. I get you, brother. I get you.
I get it, man. Yeah,
it's tough out here.
It's brutal. This Lamar stretch has just been. I know it's just hurt so many people.
Yeah, it's fucking, and he's just not built for this. Lamar's just been so good while on the field. But anyway, we're not putting that in the universe, fans. We're putting out a 30 burger.
He's gonna light
Lamar.
it up. Yeah.
He's gonna light it the fuck up. Harold Fannin against Tennessee or Dawson Knox against Cincinnati if Kincaid is out, half-point PPR.
Yeah, this is an interesting one because the Bills are playing the Bengals this week. The Bengals are one of, if not the worst defenses of all time against the tight end position. So Knox is definitely tempting here, but I'm going to go with Harold Fannin because I think that he has bankable volume, which Dawson Knox does not have. In these two Shedeur Sanders starts, Harold Fannin leads the team in targets by a pretty wide margin. So I like that. It's obviously tough to trust Shedeur versus Josh Allen in this situation, but Fannin is the much bigger piece of his offense. And I think not as touchdown reliant as Dawson Knox.
Yeah, and here's the thing about Dawson Knox. So Kincaid you have at tight end 5 because of the matchup. I agree with that. Even if Kincaid is out, Knox isn't going to be used like Kincaid gets used. I'm playing Fannin regardless of the status of Dalton Kincaid. Dawson Knox this season, believe it or not, has played in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games this year where he's had a 65% or higher snap share. 0 double-digit games. Evan, Knox doesn't have a single double-digit game on the season.
That's rough. He's just not a pass catcher, man. He's a great blocker. And
he's a great blocker.
Against
good
the Bengals,
teammate.
Sure, he could get in the end zone, but Harold Fannin is going to get 6 to 8 targets. So go with that.
I agree. We're going to go with Fannin here. Need one wide receiver rest of season. Godwin, Mitchell, Higgins, or Mechie.
Ooh, interesting. So I'm taking Mechie out of the equation. I'd rather have Mitchell, and they're on the same team. And then I think I'm going to take Godwin out of the equation too, just because Mike Evans is about to return. Godwin has looked better than I thought he would, but for me, it comes down to Mitchell versus Jaden Higgins, and I'm leaning towards Jaden Higgins. I think he has more upside with C.J. Stroud as opposed to Tyrod Taylor, and I just love Jaden Higgins as a prospect as well, and I love what we've seen on the field so far.
Same guy, 3 QBs heading into the playoffs. Burrow, Herbert, Brissett. I was thinking of dropping 2 and picking up some defensive wide receivers. Is that a good strategy? Also, which 2 would you drop? So are you carrying all this quarterback depth heading into the playoffs? And if you are not, what are you picking up?
Definitely not carrying 3. I think based on this room, you could argue carrying 2, but I would recommend dropping both Herbert and Brissett and picking up whatever is available. Honestly, you can look to our earlier portions of the show where we discussed players to target for the playoffs. But those Herbert stats I said maybe 10 minutes ago, the Chargers offense, it's just completely inept without Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater. So I want to stay away from that. And then you're going to start Joe Burrow over both these guys regardless every single week. So what's the point of keeping them,
The depth I want to roster heading into the playoffs is things assets and players I see making the lineup. Burrow's your quarterback each and every week. I mean, his first game back, he was QB 11. It's like, this guy's the man. You're going to play him each and every week. I don't care. So I'm dropping the other 2, and I'm picking up the defense. Houston we talked about, Tampa we talked about, Miami we talked about, plenty that we've talked about, and then again, go back to the early portion of the show and look at some of the names that we're stashing for the playoffs. But yeah, I think that's a great strategy. No need to have that type of QB depth when all of these games starting next week are do or die. Goddard or Waller this week?
Another tough one because we just haven't seen anything from Goddard lately, but I'm still going to go with him. I just think that offense has a little bit more upside than Darren Waller, who is kind of the definition of touchdown or bust.
I agree. I mean, Greg Dulcich didn't disappear last week, and the Jets they've been playing a better brand of football. I don't know if there's a lot of shootout appeal there, where I don't think the Eagles need to shoot out to score a shitload of points. I think they could just be pissed off with how they've played and just go berserk. And Goddard, we've seen him go berserk in primetime games this season, so that's what I'm gonna do here. I'm gonna go with Goddard over Waller. Devin, Neal, or Chris Rodriguez dealing with a CMC bye week?
So this is tough because Chris Rodriguez is the starter there, but horrible matchup versus Minnesota. I think that this comes down to whether Alvin Kamara plays. Funny enough, I actually have Rodriguez at RB29, then Kamara at RB30, Devin Neal at RB31. So if Kamara doesn't play, then I'm starting Neal. If Kamara does play, I'll go Chris Rodriguez because I think he has some more bankable volume than Neal. But it's scary hours. I'm rooting for you, man.
Yeah, I think I have to agree with you there. I think Neal feels like the highest ceiling no matter what.
Agreed.
But with Kamara there, the floor could be nothing. We've seen what that looks like. And it was just a couple weeks ago where Kamara got like old school Kamara volume. That's probably why he got hurt at the ripe age of 30 years old. So yeah, you're watching the injury reports for Alvin Kamara, and you're making a decision based off that. Because if we're looking for safety, Rodriguez, even in a tougher matchup, I feel like is a safer bet for double-digit
and
fantasy
for
points.
what it's worth, I would expect Kamara to sit this week. We'll see how it lines up. He did not practice today. I would say it's greater than 50% chance that he does not play. So lean Devin Neal if you have to pick one of these guys up.
And of course, thank you for the chat. We appreciate you. Insane gains. Oh, let's go. Marcus Mariota or Tyrod? Let's say Jaden Daniels is out. Who you picking?
I'd rather go with Tyrod versus Miami rather than Mariota versus Minnesota.
Minnesota, Tyrod Taylor, Jaden Daniel. I know that doesn't work that way. All right, got a couple more, and then we're gonna get out of here for tonight. I got a gut feeling that Benson is done for the rest of the season. Do we see Trey Benson this year?
Right now, it's not looking like it. A couple weeks ago, they activated his practice window. He had a couple limited practices and then had some kind of setback where he's had 3 straight DNPs. That is a really bad sign. I think there's 6 or 7 days left in his practice window. If he's not ready to go by then he's just out for the season. There is a chance, I guess, that they could activate him and just keep him on the bench and waste a roster spot for a couple weeks. But I'd say at the best case scenario right now is you get him for like week 16, 17. And at that point, I don't know if you can really trust him.
I'll also say this too, from a dynasty sense, Trey Benson he's walking the plank. He is staring down the abyss of fantasy value because he had his chance to be the guy for most of the season.
Yep.
And he proved to not be available. The biggest ability is dependability, and he's not proving to be that. And with James Conner coming back next year and potentially a regime change in Arizona, I don't know if Benson is going to ever see the value that he saw right after that Conner injury. Hopefully he's sold, because I could also see this. Let me just break down a situation. Jeremiah Love, pick 11 to the Cardinals.
Would it be a good move for the Cardinals? No, but it happens all the time.
And Jeremiah Love is gonna carry like a top 10 grade, I think, in a lot of NFL big boards. So it doesn't even have to be him. I'm just saying Trey Benson might have be his highest value days may already be behind him.
Yeah, if you're rostering Trey Benson in Dynasty, you need a bunch of things to break your way. Number one, you need him to get healthy this offseason. You need James Conner to probably get cut, which is very possible, but we don't really know. And then you need them to not draft a running back in the top 3 rounds. That's a lot that you need to go right.
A lot has to go right. Which waiver is better, TeSlaa or Michael Wilson? Need one for the flex.
I like TeSlaa for this week. I would prefer Michael Wilson long-term, I guess, but TeSlaa I like for this week.
Even if Amon-Ra plays, you're going TeSlaa over Wilson?
Actually, yeah, if Amon-Ra plays, I would prefer Michael Wilson over TeSlaa. That's a really tough distinction to make, though. So if you need to make this move now, I would prefer TeSlaa. But it does kind of depend for me on that Amon-Ra availability.
Well, luckily for Henny here, it's not the other way around. Michael Wilson isn't playing Thursday, and TeSlaa's playing Sunday. At least you'll know immediately the decision to make, and I agree with what Evan said. So we got a slew of Michael Wilson questions, so we're going to knock them out. We chose Higgins, but there's also a chance he could pick up Michael Wilson. So we talked about Jaden Higgins. I'll bring up the question here. But Jay Higgins or Michael Wilson?
I prefer Jaden Higgins. I just think he has more upside. As long as Marv is in the lineup, I don't think we're going to see many big games from Michael Wilson. I like the upside of the explosive rookie tied to CJ Stroud.
I agree. Sutton or Michael Wilson in the flex spot?
I don't want to go with the Broncos pass catchers, but I have to here. I have to go with Cortland Sutton. I don't trust Michael Wilson with Marv in the lineup, and I don't trust that Cardinals offense against that Rams defense.
Keep your eye on the injury reports, though, here, Gaines, because Marv isn't a lock to play.
True.
So there's a chance that we could get another game of Michael Wilson kind of being the top guy. In the matchup against the Rams, I know the defense has been good overall, but against receivers, they haven't been particularly tough to beat. So keep your eye out there.
Yeah, so on Michael Wilson, if Marv is out, then Michael Wilson is an easy wide receiver 2 smash. If Marv is in, then he's like a flex play at best. It's very important.
All right, last question, then we are going to get out of here for the night. Again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you for hanging out with us on another Wednesday. Make sure you're subscribed here at Player Profiler. Make sure you like this video. Leave a comment. Who are you riding with for Week 14 with everything on the line? So the last question is, no Tet McMillan. He is on bye. Juwan Jennings and probably no Lenny. So no Tet, no Jennings, no London. So we got to do a little bit of a waiver wire here. We got to go dumpster diving, but we need 2, Evan. Vele, he also has Olave, TeSlaa, AD, or Dortch. Rank these receivers on the waiver wire.
Yeah, so we just talked earlier through Mitchell versus TeSlaa. For me, it is dependent on Amon-Ra's availability, but I would rank this for this week I assume this is a waiver wire that's running tonight. I would rank it as Mitchell, TeSlaa, Vele, in case you don't get one of those guys. Dortch, I guess he's a fine flex play if you really have to. Pretty desperate with Marv out of the lineup. If Marv is in, though, he's basically nothing.
I agree, and that's it. That is the episode, everybody. Again, thank you for watching the game plan. Evan, tell the people listening where they can find you.
At Evan Ringler FF on Twitter. Besides that, all my work is at playerprofiler.com or on this YouTube channel right here. And also check out DFS at Fast Draft. I know a lot of your fantasy seasons might be ending soon, but the DFS season never ends, baby. We're always going over there. And it's so much fun. I'm telling you, it's so much fun. It takes 2 minutes to build a lineup, and it makes your Sunday that much more enjoyable.
Yeah, get on Fast Draft. Fast Draft is the best. Code word, game. Use that right there in the bottom part of the corner. There it is, code game for Fast Draft. He's Evan Ringler. I'm Matty Kiwoom, and we will see you next week for the first round of the playoff edition of the game plan. Peace.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.